Hi, this is Natalie with the Fifth Journey. I'm going to be making a glycerin soap today using these really pretty little delicate flowers. So I have some photos that I'll show you here in a minute that I used a mold to pour them in, and this took me about 2 days since I just have the one mold to get all of these done. So this is just the plain goat's milk, and then here I added turmeric, and then I added more of the goat's milk to lighten them up. And then here is a red Moroccan clay. So I'm going to do a goat's milk and honey base, and then I'm going to put these in as embeds on top, and then top it with the clear glycerin base, and come out with a really pretty bar. I'm really excited about this one. So I have my goat's milk base already melted and ready to go. Make sure that when you are looking for a base that you find something very high quality, because there are a lot of bases out there, things that are in hobby stores that are really no better than the soaps you get in the store. So you want to make sure that they're without all the extra chemicals and ingredients. So this is honey from our bee hives. So I'm going to go ahead and add some of this in. It's going to be about a teaspoon to a teaspoon, because this is going to be about 5 pounds of soap right here. So I'm eyeballing a little bit. You can add more, but the more honey you add, it does affect the color a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and stir that in. And then I'm going to add in some rose clay that has been mixed with alcohol. So I don't want to mix it with water. I don't want to mix it with oil. Oil just doesn't mix well. And the water will just add to the glycerin dew that can happen if you don't wrap it right away. So I don't want to add any extra moisture, and the alcohol will evaporate very quickly. So I've got the honey mixed in there, and then this is that rose clay that I have added in. So I'm hoping for a little bit of a light pink, and I may add more if necessary. If you see how that's the alcohol that I've mixed it in when it does that. So I'm going to go ahead and mix it in. Let's see, it's already turning a light pink. I might go ahead and add a little bit more, because right now that's a little bit like calamine lotion, so I want to have a little bit darker pink than that. So that was about a half a teaspoon, so I'm not going to do a whole bunch more. My spray bottle with the alcohol. Mix it in. Now you don't want to put the clay directly into your soap without wetting it first, because otherwise you'll get little spots and it won't incorporate as well. Okay. That's an easy way to kind of clean the container out, because that'll just all evaporate out. And then I'm going to go ahead and add the fragrance to the base. And it's a really nice rose fragrance. It's not overly strong. It's very light, very mild. It's really a pretty scent, but without that overwhelming rose scent that you sometimes get. So there we go. So that'll look really nice underneath the roses that I'll put in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and add my fragrance. This is about an ounce, a little bit over an ounce, since I'm doing a 5-pound batch. So you want to use about an ounce of your soap safe, your fragrance, into about 4 pounds. So there's different strengths, and I'm going with about a medium strength on this. Go ahead and add that in. Mix it in really good. My scale out of the way. using that earlier. Oh, that smells good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pour this into the two molds that I have. And then I'm going to let it sit for about 30 minutes so it can get a good firm top on it before I add the roses on top. So it's a really pretty color. And the nice thing about this type of soap, you don't have to have all of the gloves and the mask and the eye covering like you would with the other. Let's go ahead and pour this in. That smells good. And that looks about even. Okay, so I'm going to spritz this with the alcohol again to remove any bubbles. It's like magic, it just goes right away. There you go. Okay, and then I will come back in about 30 minutes and we'll go ahead and place those on and do the next step. Okay, it's been about 30 minutes and I'm back ready to go ahead and put the roses on top. And as you can see, there is a layer on top, but the bottom is still very soft. So I'm going to go ahead and spritz the tops with alcohol, and I'm going to do it as I go along. That will help the soap layers adhere to each other. I have my clear that has already been melted, and I'm setting this aside. I'm going to stir it every so often. It's way too hot right now. I'm going to let it cool to about 125, 130 degrees, close to the 125 mark. And if you pour any hotter than that, then you risk not only melting through this top layer, but also melting all of your embeds. And you don't want to do that after all the hard work you've done. So I'm going to go ahead and spritz the top of this with the alcohol. I'm going to go ahead and give it a generous layer. And then I'll add more as we go. So I'm just going to do a little bit of a random pattern. And then I can kind of move them around. Or fill in with other colors. Let's see, let's go ahead and move that one up there. Now I know those are close together, but they're obviously not going to be that close together when I cut them, so that's okay. Some white ones. Now, if you want, you can go through and mark mark where your bar cuts will be. But I use these molds for my cold process soap as well, and the width isn't always the same. But if you're using the same molds for everything, then definitely you can make marks as to where your bars will be, and then you can line them up perfectly. I wanted more of a random pattern, so that is why I'm doing it this way, but you can definitely do that. So that light pink is kind of showing through. Let's put the light yellow. And if the alcohol does evaporate, so I'm going to go ahead and add more. Go ahead and give this a stir. And we still got a ways to go. And we may need to pause this for a little bit until this cools down. You want to keep stirring this, because if you stop stirring it when it's too hot, then you'll get a skim on the top. And you can't really get rid of that unless you... Well, I take that back. You can stir it in, but they can get chunks of the soap in there, and you don't really want to do that. And I may end up with more embeds than I have room for. And And the alcohol also helps slide things around. Now if you can see, I don't know if you can see this on the video, maybe if I can slide one of these, you will have a little bit of bleeding that can happen when the soap comes through, and that's totally normal and that can happen. So that's just one of those things that if you're using colorants, they can tend to bleed into each other, especially when you're using a darker color or more intense. So see how the turmeric is starting to bleed into that? And that's okay. If you don't want that to happen, then you definitely need to use some lighter colors to avoid that. Sometimes I think that's really pretty. A bouquet. Now I'm probably going to end up with a few extra, but I'm going to try and cram as many of these in here as possible. Let's slide that little guy down there. Kind of reminds me of a waterbed pushing these on there. Let's see. Now I want to be careful when I'm pushing these around because these roses are very delicate. If I'm not careful, then I can squish the petals down. I don't want to do that. So that kind of ruins your look. There's that one in there. Let's see if I can fit this guy in there. Put him up there. I don't want to push too hard because I can push through that bottom layer, and I don't want to do that either. Get that little guy in there. Let's see, got a couple more. That's going to be really pretty. That one's not going in there. All right, let's get that last one in there. There we go. And this, again, I'm still spritzing. That'll help the bottoms of this stick together. Let's get this out of the way. Okay, I'm going to give this a pause, and we'll come back once this has cooled down some more. Okay, we're back to do the final pour with the clear. I actually had to heat it up just a hair because I was stirring it and everything was going great, but it still had a few more degrees to go down. I went and asked my husband a quick question, and then I came back probably 30 seconds later and it was already globbed up, so I had to heat it up again. So I've already spritzed this one with alcohol. I'm going to keep stirring this as I do this because as soon as I stop, it'll get a skim and it'll start to harden, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to spritz these really good with alcohol one more time, really getting those roses. Kind of running out in my bottle. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and pour. I'm going to do this kind of on the side. Sorry if my head gets in the way. I don't want to go right over the roses. And I want to, oops, I went right over the roses on top of that one. Because if you pour right over the top of something fragile, even the weight of pouring it on top can crush it, so I don't want to do that. So kind of trying to go in between them. There we go. As I'm doing this. Now I've found, if you're not doing layers, about 5 to 10 ounces per batch, if you're using like a normal sized loaf, is a really good number. 5 to 10 ounces of clear is a good amount to have enough to pour over the top to fully cover it. Oops, I totally missed my loaf there. And this is setting up really fast. See how that's glopping already? So I'm actually going to stop right here, and I'm going to see how that's already getting all gloppy. I'm going to zap this for about 10 seconds in the microwave to heat it up again, because if I continue to pour, I'm just going to get big clumps in there. So give me just a second. See how it's getting all stringy? That's not what you want. So there's a very, very fine line when you're doing this. So zap it for about 10 more seconds. And it doesn't take much. So it's going to be really pretty. So most of these are covered up. There's a little bit of bubbles. I don't know if you can see that, but there's some bubbles in through here from when the soap started setting up. And that's all it takes. Give it a quick stir. And probably what I'm going to do, because I don't want to heat this up again too much, is I'm going to block those harder pieces with the spoon so they don't pour in. Spritz it again, because it's already setting up. Some more over on this side. Move those little guys out of the way. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and give it one more spritz. Get out as many bubbles as I can. And there we have it. I'm going to go ahead and let this sit overnight to fully harden, and then come back tomorrow and go ahead and unmold it and slice it into bars. Then with this type of soap, since it does have a high glycerin content, you do have the issue of the glycerin dew. So where you get those little beads of liquid on top of it. That's why with this type of soap you do want to wrap right away. If you don't wrap them, you'll get the glycerin dew, and then they can also shrivel up and get really small because they are losing their water content. So I'm going to go ahead and cover this up with some plastic wrap, set them aside overnight, and come back in the morning and we'll cut them and wrap them up. All right, it's the next day, and we're going to go ahead and cut these loaves. And don't they look pretty? That come out really nice. Go ahead and take it out of the box. Peeling the sides off. There we go, it's that pretty pink. Right there. So first I'm going to do is go ahead and take off a little bit of the rough edges, and a vegetable peeler works really well for that. can use a bevel or two, but that just does it really fast. So I'm going to go ahead and measure out. Instead of using a cutting box, miter box, that type of thing to cut the soaps, I'm just going to do with a ruler because I know about how big they're going to be. So this is about a 10-inch loaf of soap. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it at the 5, 2.5, and then 7.5. Flip that around, and 2.5 inches is about 6 centimeters. So I'll just put that kind of in the middle. And if they're not exact, it's okay. So I'm cutting it at the 3, or marking it at the 3. Okay, get that out of the way. And let's go ahead and start cutting. So didn't that turn out really pretty? I'm really excited about that. Give it a little twist. You can use a crinkle cutter for these, depending on the bar of soap that I make. I will sometimes use a crinkle cutter, and sometimes I'll use this. The crinkle one gives a little bit more rustic look, so if you're wanting a cleaner look, I can't talk, then you'll want to use a knife, or they have the wires that you can use. But each one is completely different, but that's so pretty. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. A little slice of them. You can see those little ones on the side. That came out really pretty. Kind of getting stuff out of the way. Last one. And there you have it. Didn't those come out really pretty? I'm really excited about those. So I'm going to go ahead and shrink wrap these up and get them ready for sale. So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll see you next time.